2020 has been a weird year so far, to say the least. It's been a year full of uncertainty, strife, and doubt, and some of that has, of course, bled over into the games industry as well. In spite of that, though, we've been able to take some small comfort in the fact that there have still been quite a few excellent games to keep us busy in the first half of the year. And now, with half of 2020 having already passed us by, in this feature, we'll be taking a look at what we feel have been the best games of the year so far, starting with the best and ending with, well, the very best. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 15, Desperados 3. Desperados 3 really came out of nowhere, a revival of a franchise that, though well loved by a small group of people, never really managed to break into the mainstream. There wasn't too much hype surrounding Desperados 3's launch, but when it did come out, it took everyone by surprise, delivering an addictive, engaging, and complex blend of stealth and real-time tactics. Desperados 3 delivers a brand of gameplay that feels very unique and instantly compelling all at once, while also managing to nail its Wild West aesthetic with endearing characters and a solid story. What's even better is the fact that as the first game in the series chronology, it's the perfect jumping-on point for newcomers. Number 14, Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage is an absolutely legendary IP in the beat-em-up space, and even though it had been years since we'd last seen anything of it, it had always held a special place in the hearts of millions of fans. With Streets of Rage 4, the developers had high expectations to live up to, which they did with flying colors. Streets of Rage 4 is exactly what it needed to be. It delivers the same bashful and enjoyable combat that the series has always been known for, and somehow manages to strike the perfect balance between capturing the nostalgia of its predecessors and carving out an identity of its own. Streets of Rage has made a triumphant comeback. Let's hope it's here to stay this time. Number 13, Deep Rock Galactic. Having spent nearly 2 years in early access, many of us knew that with Deep Rock Galactic, developers Ghost Ship Games had something special on their hands, and that if they kept taking the right steps in the lead up to its 1.0 launch, they could deliver something truly excellent. That's exactly what they managed to do. Deep Rock Galactic saw its first full launch earlier this year, and delivered a brand of co-op first-person shooting action that has become far too rare in the industry. Combining elements of Left 4 Dead with an excellent setting and exciting action, Deep Rock Galactic is probably one of the most satisfying co-op shooters we've played in years. Number 12, Gears Tactics. When you think of Gears of War, you think of big, burly soldiers taking cover behind waist-high walls for some good old stop-and-pop over-the-shoulder shooting. You definitely don't think of turn-based strategy. Gears Tactics somehow manages to take that Gears formula and apply it with great success to the XCOM template. It succeeds as both a Gears game and a tactics game. It tells an enjoyable story, it boasts great map design, and with its extensive customization mechanics, it delivers a more engaging gameplay loop than you'd be used to in a Gears game. We can safely say that this turn-based tactics outing has been a very successful experiment for Microsoft's cover shooting franchise. Number 11, XENOBLADE Chronicles Definitive Edition. XENOBLADE Chronicles is often called one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, and with its Definitive Edition launch on the Switch, it proved that beyond all doubt once again. With its enhanced visuals, the game's beautiful and massive world has become even more wondrous and even more of a joy to explore. With its quality of life improvements, it sands off the rough edges that did hamper the game's original release. With Future Connected, it adds a meaty, compelling chunk of story and gameplay to an already meaty package. Meanwhile, its excellent story and stellar combat system are still as good in 2020 as they were a decade ago. Number 10, Black Mesa. Starting life as a fan remake mod of the first Half-Life, Black Mesa has grown tremendously in scope and ambition during the course of its long development. 2020 served as a culmination for it, and what a culmination it was. Fittingly enough, coming out in the same year that also saw the return of Half-Life itself, which we'll get to in a bit, Black Mesa delivers the definitive Half-Life 1 experience, which is saying a lot. It retells the story incredibly well. It looks excellent. Its faithfulness to the original is admirable, and new mechanics and improved AI blend with its solid gunplay to great effect. Number 9. Nioh 2. Nioh 2 does what any sequel should ideally do, especially when it's following up on a great beloved game. It takes what worked so well in the first game and refines it further, adding improvements and tweaks to deliver a more engaging experience. The excellent combat is still here, but made even better with greater weapon variety, an even more hardcore level of challenge, and memorable boss fights, while the ridiculous amount of customization and progression mechanics it offers lends it an all-new level of depth in terms of player agency, given its very nature as a Souls-inspired, brutally challenging game. It's true that not everyone will be able to enjoy Nioh 2, but those who like this genre will find a lot to love here. Number 8. Animal Crossing: New Horizons. With Animal Crossing: New Horizons, Nintendo have delivered not only the best Animal Crossing game to date, but also one of their best first-party titles in the Switch era, which is really saying something. New Horizons offers that trademark, charming, and blissfully breezy experience that has endeared this series to millions, but it also makes improvements that prop it up above what anyone expected. For instance, the addition of Nuke Miles and terraforming, to name just two of many notable improvements, brings even more stuff to do in a game that already guarantees dozens of hours of gameplay. No, there are no demons to slay here, no bosses to beat, no platforming gauntlets to conquer. But what Animal Crossing offers, nothing else does, at least not this well. Number 7. Doom Eternal. Eternal takes its predecessor's combat and ratchets its frenetic pace and brutal action all the way up to 100. Every combat encounter feels like an adrenaline-fueled puzzle as you flit and zip around the arena and exploit the weaknesses of all the expertly designed demons, and the new platforming mechanics add a great deal to that. Number 6. Half-Life: ALYX. Half-Life 3 Confirmed has been a meme for as long as internet memes have existed. Well, almost. And even though we didn't technically get the third Half-Life game, we did get the next mainline Half-Life installment. But the fact that the series finally made its grand comeback after years of silence wasn't even the most surprising part. What was even more surprising was that that comeback was a VR exclusive. And though that may have seemed like a controversial decision at first, Half-Life: ALYX was able to quell any of those doubts almost instantly. Valve's return to the limelight is a spectacular one. In one single move, they've managed to deliver an excellent first-person shooter, tell a surprising story that moves the series forward in exciting ways, evolved the Half-Life formula to great effect, and showcase just what VR games are capable of when developers and publishers go all in on the technology. Fittingly enough for a Half-Life game, ALYX is an industry benchmark that proudly stands shoulder to shoulder with its predecessors. Number 5. Dreams. Media Molecule had been working on Dreams for a long time, but it's safe to say that it was completely worth the wait, and then some. Taking the play, create, share mantra they popularized with Little Big Planet and taking it to its absolute extremes. Dreams is a wonderful creation toolset with a ridiculous amount of depth. On top of encouraging the creativity of millions of people as well as it does, it also makes sure to be surprisingly easy to use and accessible. In doing so, it delivers an impossibly balanced experience that is as fun to play or use as it is deep. Number 4. Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 is already one of the greatest games ever made. How do you improve upon that? Apparently, if you're Atlus, you do it with surprising ease. Persona 5 Royal is an absolute unabashed masterpiece. It boasts of all the greatest strengths that elevated the original Persona 5, from its excellent music and zany sense of style to its addictive blend of life simulation and dungeon crawling, to an excellent story and a great cast of characters. On top of all that, it makes significant improvements to the combat, the dungeon design, the story structure and pacing, while also adding a significant amount of new content, which incidentally is perhaps the best content Atlus have ever developed. Impossibly enough, Persona 5 Royal renders the base Persona 5, which is already a masterpiece, completely obsolete. That's not an easy thing to do at all, and yet Persona 5 Royal does it with complete confidence. Number 3. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. The Metroidvania genre has delivered some truly great games over the last few years, and Moon Studios' Ori and the Blind Forest has definitely counted among those since it first came out. Will of the Wisps, Impossibly Enough, is even better. Tight, satisfying platforming, the perfect amount of challenge, massively improved combat, engaging and layered progression mechanics, rewarding exploration, excellent boss fights, stellar music, beautiful and vibrant visuals, and a typically moving and well-told story all come together to deliver an overwhelmingly amazing game. Number 2. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square Enix were not at all in an enviable position with Final Fantasy VII Remake. The original FF7 is one of the most highly regarded games of all time, with a legacy matched by very few other games. A remake of a game that is as ambitious in nature as FF7 Remake is was always going to have a lot to live up to. Final Fantasy VII Remake definitely made some controversial changes to its story, and on the whole delivered a remarkably good game. From its cutting-edge visuals to its excellent combat, to how thoroughly it fleshes out the world and characters of just the first half-dozen hours of FF7, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a dream come true for fans of the original game. Number 1. The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 could have played it safe and delivered a game that stuck closely to the winning formula of its predecessor, but Naughty Dog took a risk, and boy did it pay off. It makes narrative choices that are very bold, to say the least, develops and portrays characters that are excellently written and acted, and it looks absolutely stunning, getting a surprising amount of juice out of hardware that even in 2013 was outdated. On the gameplay front, it plays on the strengths of its predecessors to deliver even more dynamic stealth, more intense combat, deeper progression and customization, and even more potent horror. The Last of Us Part 2 is yet another impressive notch on Naughty Dog's belt. It is in fact their crowning achievement. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, please hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to switch on the notifications bell icon next to it. That way you'll never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.